All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
So we've got quite a bit of listener feedback about LLMs lately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people are really fascinated by them, all these large language
Oh,
models.
no, no. It's unbelievable how far they've come, isn't it?
It really is. And, they sent us some interesting research, a paper called MemGPT towards LLMs as operating systems.
I've seen this one. It's a fascinating paper.
Yeah, and it kind of got me thinking, LLMs are amazing. They can write poems, translate languages,
Right.
but they do have this limitation, the
Yeah.
context window, like their short-term memory.
Uh-huh.
Popular models like GPT 3.5 Turbo,
Yeah.
it maxes out at around 4,000 tokens.
Right.
That translates to roughly, 3,000 words?
Hopefully, yeah.
Maybe a handful of pages of text.
That's about it.
GPT-4 can handle 8,000 or 32,000, depending on the version.
That's right.
And Claude 2,
Mm-hmm.
100,000 tokens.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But even with these, bigger windows,
Yeah.
there's a ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a limit to how much information they can process at once.
Right.
Like, if you tried to read an entire library in one go,
Oh, my brain would explode.
it would be way too much to handle. And that's exactly the problem that MemGPT is trying to address.
Right. MemGPT.
Uh,
Creating LLMs with a much larger, almost unlimited memory capacity.
yeah.
So, and that, I know. You're
I-
thinking, just increase the context window size.
Yeah, that's the obvious solution, right?
But it's not that simple, is it?
Not really. It's tempting to think we can just throw more hardware at the problem.
Right.
But the real issue is that increasing the context window size leads to these, what we call quadratic increases in computational cost and memory usage.
I'm not a computer scientist, so.
Okay. Imagine you're having a party,
Okay.
and each piece of information the LLM has to process is a guest at your party.
Okay, yeah.
As you invite more guests.
More guests, more interactions.
Exactly. The number of potential interactions between them explodes.
Right. It gets really crowded, really fast. And even with super powerful hardware, this scaling just isn't sustainable.
So you're saying it's not just about...
It's not just about the hardware. It's about finding a smarter way to manage information.
So MemGPT takes a different approach,
It does.
taking inspiration from something we use every day,
That's right. Something we're all familiar with.
our computer's operating system.
Exactly. Think about it. Your computer's operating system is juggling all sorts of stuff. Applications, files, data.
Oh, yeah.
You have your active windows, the things you're working on right now. That's like your RAM. Then you've got your hard drive storing tons of files. You might not be using them at the moment, but you can access them when you need to.
Right, right.
MemGPT creates a similar hierarchical memory system for LLMs.
So it's like MemGPT is giving LLMs a way to manage all this information smoothly.
That's a great way to put it.
Like without crashing my computer when I have too many tabs open.
Uh-huh, exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about managing resources efficiently. Okay, so walk me through it. How does this memory hierarchy actually work?
So MemGPT has this main context, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can think of it as the LLM's active workspace. It's short-term memory.
Kind of like our computer's RAM.
Exactly. But this main context is divided into three parts:
Okay.
system instructions, working context, and a FIFO queue.
Okay, let's break those down.
Sure.
System instructions, what are those?
Think of them as the rule book for the LLM.
Okay.
They guide how the LLM interacts with its own memory system. It's like a set of commands for storing, retrieving, and managing information.
Got it. So what about the working context?
The working context is where the LLM stores the key facts and its evolving understanding of what's being discussed.
Okay.
It's constantly being updated as new information comes in.
Like as the conversation progresses.
Exactly.
And finally, we have the FIFO queue.
Yes.
What's that all about?
FIFO stands for first in, first out. It's like a line at the theme park.
Oh, okay.
The first person in line gets on the ride first, and new people join the back.
Uh-huh. So the FIFO queue holds the recent conversation history.
Exactly.
Older messages get pushed further back as new ones come in.
Right.
But doesn't that mean we lose those older messages?
That's where MemGPT gets clever. It creates something called a recursive summary.
Recursive summary.
Yeah. Imagine summarizing a long chapter into a few key bullet points.
Okay, yeah.
That's essentially what the recursive summary does. As messages get pushed out of the FIFO queue, they're incorporated into this super condensed version of the conversation so far.
Ah, so that's how MemGPT manages the limited space.
Precisely.
It's constantly summarizing its memories to free up space for new ones.
Exactly. And there are safeguards in place to make sure nothing important gets lost. It's like a well-organized filing system, making sure the most relevant information is readily available.
This is incredible. It sounds like MemGPT is giving these LLMs a serious memory upgrade, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
We have. There's a lot more to unpack.
There is.
We still need to talk about how MemGPT manages memory overflow, how it uses function calls to manipulate information,
Right.
and ultimately how it all comes together to create a truly intelligent system.
Okay. All right, listeners, buckle up. We're diving even deeper into the world of MemGPT.
So we talked about MemGPT and this memory management system.
Right, like how does it actually work?
Yeah, does it actually make LLMs better?
Right.
So the researchers, they put MemGPT through some tests.
Huh.
They focused on two main areas,
Okay.
conversational agents and document analysis.
Let's start with the chatbots.
Okay.
I mean, who hasn't wanted a chatbot that
Uh-huh.
remembers past conversations?
Yeah.
That's like a real person.
Yeah, like a real back and forth.
Right, exactly.
So for the conversational agent tests,
Uh-huh.
they use this data set called multi-session chat,
Multi-session chat,
MSC.
MSC. Okay.
And it's basically a bunch of conversations
Okay.
where people are role-playing
Role-playing, like,
different personas.
okay.
Like a friendly librarian or a grumpy pirate.
Okay.
So it's like, think of it as an LLM acting school.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
They have to take on these roles
Right.
and maintain them.
Okay.
So one of the key tests was,
Yeah.
it was called the deep memory retrieval task.
Deep memory retrieval task.
Yeah, so they would ask MemGPT questions
Uh-huh.
that required remembering details
Okay.
from previous conversations.
So, like, if you were talking to the chatbot
Yeah.
and you mentioned a trip you took 6 months ago.
Right, and then later you say,
Hey, remember that trip?
what was the name of that restaurant?
Exactly. And it would have to go back and remember.
It has to dig through its memory.
That's pretty cool.
So they did this test.
Yeah.
MemGPT, with GPT-4 as its brain,
Okay.
had an accuracy of 92.5%.
Wow. That's impressive.
Now compare that to regular GPT-4
Okay.
without MemGPT. Like,
Right.
it only scored 32.1%.
That's a huge difference.
That's a massive difference.
Wow.
It's like, comparing someone with a photographic memory to someone who can barely remember what they had for breakfast.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
So MemGPT is really good at remembering these details.
Right, but it's not just about spitting out the right answer, is it?
Yeah.
What about, like, the quality of the response?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because we want it to sound human.
Right, exactly.
We want it to be engaging.
Right.
So they use this other metric called Rouge.
Rouge.
Yeah. It measures how well the generated response matches what we would consider a gold standard answer.
Okay.
Like a really good human written answer.
Got it. So it's not just getting the right answer.
Right. It's about how well it's expressed.
It's about being detailed and giving a really thorough response.
Exactly. Like a human would.
Yeah, okay.
And guess what?
What?
MemGPT scored higher on Rouge, too.
Oh, wow.
So not only was it remembering,
Yeah.
it was understanding.
It was understanding. That's incredible.
And responding in a comprehensive way.
Okay, so it's got the memory.
It's got the memory.
It's got the quality of response.
Uh-huh.
But what about engagement? Like, can it take all that information and be engaging?
That's a great point.
Like, remember, my birthday or something and bring that up naturally.
Right.
Like a human would.
So for that, they had the conversation opener task.
Conversation opener task.
So imagine you're starting a new chat
Okay.
with the MemGPT chatbot.
Right.
Can it craft an opening message
Uh-huh.
that is personalized and relevant to your past interactions?
Oh, that would be amazing.
Instead of just a generic hello,
Right. A generic hello.
it might say, hey, how was that new restaurant
Oh, wow.
that you were telling me about?
That's amazing.
It's bringing in those past details.
Right.
So they compared MemGPT's openers
Okay.
to the human written ones from the data set.
MSC data set.
And they also looked at
Yeah.
how well MemGPT maintained its persona.
Oh, right. Because it's role playing.
It's role-playing, exactly.
Got-
So it needs to be consistent with that character.
Right. If it's a pirate, it needs to talk like a pirate.
Exactly. It can't suddenly become a librarian.
Right.
So the results were really good.
Really?
MemGPT did exceptionally well.
That's impressive.
It was often just as good or even better
Wow.
than the human-written openers.
That's amazing.
It was able to weave in those past details
Right.
and maintain that persona.
So this is sounding more and more
I know, it's getting pretty impressive.
Like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
Like an AI that remembers, learns, and makes small talk.
it's getting there.
That's really cool, but
We're not done. We're not
that's
there.
our done. What about those massive documents?
Yeah, the big ones.
Can MemGPT actually handle them?
That's where its external context comes in.
External context.
Yeah, remember we talked about
Like the hard drive.
it's like that hard drive.
Okay.
It's not just remembering conversations.
Right.
It can handle massive amounts of text.
Like research papers, books.
Yeah, think legal documents, scientific journals.
Okay, so how do they test that?
So they used what's called a multi-document question answering task.
Multi-document question answering. Okay.
So imagine giving MemGPT a set of Wikipedia articles.
Okay.
Let's say 10 of them.
Okay.
And then you ask it questions that require information from multiple articles.
So it's like pulling information from different sources.
Exactly. It's like a research assistant
Right.
trying to synthesize information.
That's cool.
And what they found was that
Yeah.
MemGPT consistently outperformed traditional LLMs,
Okay.
especially when the number of documents increased.
So the more information it has,
Yeah,
the better it performs.
it seems that way.
That's really interesting.
It's like having a research assistant that never gets tired,
Right. It just keeps going.
no matter how many papers you give it.
That's amazing. How does it do that?
It all comes down to those function calls again.
Oh, right. The function calls.
Remember we talked about those?
Yeah, those are the things that let it interact with its memory, right?
Exactly. It's like its tools
Okay.
for manipulating information.
So it can search through all those documents
Uh-huh.
and find the right information.
And bring it into its main context.
Okay. So it's like knowing where to find the right book in a library.
It's like having a really good index.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they took it a step further.
They did.
Yeah, they introduced this task called nested key value retrieval.
Nested key value retrieval.
It's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah.
So imagine a database
Okay.
where each piece of information is linked to another piece of information,
Oh, okay.
and so on.
So it's like a chain of information.
It's like a treasure hunt, where each clue leads you to another clue.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
It is. Traditional LLMs really struggled with this.
Okay.
But MemGPT, it excelled.
Oh, wow.
It used those function calls to navigate through this web of information.
That's really impressive.
So it's not just a good memory.
Right.
It's a strategic thinker.
It's a strategic thinker. That's amazing.
It can figure out how to get to the information it needs.
Okay, so we've seen how MemGPT can remember conversations,
Yeah.
craft chatbot responses,
Uh-huh.
analyze documents, and even solve these like really complex problems.
It's a pretty remarkable system.
It is. So where do we go from here? What does all this mean for the future?
Well, that's the exciting part.
Yeah, like where does this technology go from here?
I think, we're talking about a huge change.
A huge change.
Yeah, in how we think about
Okay.
AI and information.
Okay.
Imagine AI assistants that,
Yeah.
they remember everything,
Everything.
every conversation you've ever had.
Oh, wow.
And they tailor their responses
Oh, that's cool.
to you. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
they know you better than you know yourself.
Almost. Yeah, when it comes to remembering details.
It's kind of creepy, but also kind of awesome.
Yeah, there are definitely
Yeah.
ethical things to consider.
Right. Especially with
Data privacy and security.
Yeah. We need to make sure it's developed responsibly.
Right, for sure.
But, focusing on the good stuff.
Yeah, the potential.
Essentially, yeah.
Like, what about research?
Oh,
Scientists using MemGPT
Uh-huh.
to analyze these huge data sets,
Imagine.
uncovering hidden patterns,
Yeah.
new discoveries.
In medicine, climate science.
Right. What about education?
Oh, that's a great one.
Personalized AI tutors.
That's
that
right.
remember how you learn.
Your strengths.
Weaknesses.
It's like having a, custom-made education
Yeah.
just for you.
Wow. What about creative fields?
Oh, that's a good one.
Writers using AI
Yeah.
that remember everything they've written
Imagine that.
to help them, like
Yeah.
craft new stories.
New ideas.
New ideas.
Based on their past work.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like having an AI muse
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
who understands you.
Wow.
The possibilities are,
Yeah,
endless.
they are. But
Like,
you got to remember, MemGPT,
It's still early days.
early research.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely.
Like, improving the memory management system.
Right. And making sure LLMs use their knowledge responsibly.
Exactly. That's important.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
my brain is fried.
It's a lot to take in.
We went from context windows to function calls.
Yeah, recursive summaries.
Yeah, nested key value retrieval.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
Yeah.
So listeners, keep those brains curious.
Keep learning.
and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye, everyone.